welcome to Mission Matters Live, a program focused on promoting a spirit of mission among the people of God in the Archdiocese of Chicago. My name is Megan Mio, and I'm the director of the Global Mission Office. Our engineer is Mike. The Augustinians of the province of Our Mother of Good Counsel are members of the worldwide religious Order of Saint Augustine. Also referred to as the Midwest Augustinians, the province office is right here in Chicago, near St. Barnabas Church in the Beverly neighborhood. Augustinians are centered in the Eucharist and prayer and yearn for unity. They search for God in community by sharing their lives, goods, and spiritual journey with the people of God. Augustinians minister in schools, parishes, and through missionary work. They're all about one mind and one heart on the way to God. We have with us today Father Anthony Pizzo, who is the Provincial Prior of the Midwest Augustinians. We're so pleased to have you here with us, knowing how incredibly busy you must have been since May. Life has, I'm sure, changed since the election of Pope Leo XIV. Of course, Pope Leo is a Midwest Augustinian and missionary priest and bishop. I'm sure it's been kind of crazy the last few months. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your friend with us. Sharing, also participating in the mission appeals. Members of the Augustinian, Midwest Augustinians participated, visited some of our parishes this summer for mission appeals as well. So we'd just like to learn about this Augustinian way of life, learn about your own story, and of course the connection here with Pope Leo. So thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you, Megan, for inviting me and for allowing me to be able to speak on behalf of the order.
It's wonderful.
And especially our province.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, we'd like to start with learning a little bit about you. Can you tell us a little bit about your vocational journey? You're originally from the south side of Chicago, correct?
I am, yeah. I'm from the Midway area originally. I went to St. Rene Goupil Grade School, sure. JFK High School, and then went on to Villanova University, where back in 1974 is where I met Robert Prevost and currently Pope Leo XIV. It's interesting. I was introduced to the Augustinians when I was in junior high. Mm-hmm. It was at that particular point, already a generation or maybe a generation and a half ago, where it was pretty common that the Catholic grade schools, especially here in Chicago, would invite priests, religious, to come and speak to the students. Mm-hmm. And I was first introduced to the Augustinians when I was in 7th grade. And there were a number of us actually that felt this inclination to go and visit the former high school seminary, St. Augustine High School Seminary in Holland, Michigan, of where Pope Leo XIV went to school. Mm-hmm. And when I was first introduced, there was something there that I thought, okay, this is kind of interesting. Yeah. Maybe. And one thing led to another. Then I went to high school and was trying to figure out what direction my life was going to go in. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, I never really let go of the possibility of priesthood and or religious life. Mm-hmm. So when it came down to applying for college, I did apply to Villanova. I heard of it and I was impressed with what I read about it. So as well as other universities. But when I received my letter of approval and acceptance, I said, I'm going to Villanova University.
It felt right. It
felt right, and so all these years later, more than 45 years later, it still feels right.
Yeah, it seemed like the right place to be.
Right.
And was that where you really started to feel that calling more clearly?
Certainly. We had a specialized program for those who were discerning religious life with the Augustinians as a possibility. Mm-hmm. And when it came to senior year, I made a decision that I was going to go on. There were a couple of us from that group that made a decision to move on to the novitiate, whereby we spent the year in St. Louis. We professed our vows 1 year after Robert Prevost professed his vows, as a matter of fact. I mean, we were that close, my classmate and myself. Okay. And here we are, went on to Catholic Theological Union for our graduate degree in theology and ministry.
Sure.
We all got ordained respectively,
Right.
and we were all sent to different places, and that's where Pope Leo, Robert Prevost, was sent to the missions. I wound up in parish work, and my classmate wound up in high school work.
Aha. So in which parish work was it here in the Chicago diocese or somewhere else?
Well, I was ordained a deacon at St. Clair of Montefalco in Gage Park. However, that wasn't the first time. But then I wound up at a parish in the Archdiocese of Detroit for a few years, and then another few years in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which is the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. Then I was sent back to Chicago in 1991, where I was assigned to St. Clair of Montefalco and Gage Park once again, where I spent a whole decade, including as pastor.
Right. Okay. So, and then from there, were you named provincial then?
Well, no, not exactly.
Lots
So
happened.
after my time at St. Clair, I moved on in about 2001, and I was involved in the DMin or doctoral program at CTU.
Sure.
In which case, then I took those 5 years out of coursework, research, and then I felt I needed to justify my financial existence by taking on a position with the Archdiocese, both actually teaching at Quigley High School for about a year, and then spiritual director of the Hispanic Diaconate program of the Archdiocese. When one of my good friends and a classmate of Pope Leo was elected provincial, he presented to me what my next assignment was.
Right.
And I wound up as pastor of St. Rita of Cascia in the Chicago Lawn neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many years were you there?
12 years.
A good amount of time.
12 years and almost 12 years as dean, working closely with the local Episcopal vicar. Then in 2018 is when I was elected as the prior provincial of the Midwest province.
So I mean, this is the life of a religious priest. I think that you kind of move around. You're kind of sent where you're sent, and it's not even. I mean, because the province is more than just the Chicagoland area. It's all of the Midwest, I take it, that you were moved to even other states and other areas. Took getting used to when you would switch from one ministry role to another?
Yeah, for me, being provincial was on-the-job training. I mean, you really are not totally prepared to take on this kind of responsibility.
Yeah.
Because the Midwest province of the Augustinians in the United States is not just the Midwest, meaning the immediate Chicago area, but the Chicago metropolitan area. We have a high school in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is kind of out in left field, but still part of our province because it's the Southwest.
Yeah.
But then we take in all of Canada, Nova Scotia, Toronto, and Vancouver. And, of course, the northwest coast of Peru and South America, in an area called Piura, and more specifically what we call Chulucanas.
Yeah, that's pretty expansive. Then, I mean, so becoming the prior provincial was the first time that you really had to traverse that wider map of the whole.
And that's where I realized that the very nature of our lifestyle as religious is transitory. We're always moving. We're always moving, and it's important that we understand that we are obviously available, disposed toward making these transitions from one place to another, sometimes from one ministry to another ministry.
Right. Yeah. And you took that vow of obedience, of course, and so
I took that vow of obedience. Yes.
I know it's a dialogue; it is a discussion, but that yes, I mean, where there's a need, somebody's got to work to meet it.
Right, and it takes listening on both parts, the part of the superior, as well as the friar, the member of the order, that needs to dialogue with the superior regarding what is the next call.
Yeah. And what gifts do you or any member have?
And thank you for that, because that's important. Yeah. Not everybody has the same gifts as St. Paul speaks about, right? We're all called to different ministries. Our job individually in our cultivating our relationship with God is to determine, so what is God asking of me now? do I have what it takes for this particular area of service?
Yeah.
So it's a matter of self-conscious, self-awareness exercises in terms of figuring out, perhaps I'm called to this, and this is different than what I was doing before.
Yeah, and even if it makes me a little uncomfortable, I think I could do this, and I could do it well.
As I always say, we have to step out of our comfort zones because God will provide what we are lacking.
Right. Yeah, and this is too the missionary life. I mean, missionary doesn't necessarily mean traveling internationally. It can mean being missionary right here in our own backyard.
Absolutely.
Getting out of our comfort zone,
yeah.
crossing some kind of cultural or contextual boundary. So tell us a little bit more about this Augustinian spirituality, way of life, and your connection with Saint Augustine of Hippo.
Certainly. So we consider Saint Augustine of Hippo, that great North African bishop, to be our spiritual founder. Augustine did write a rule of life for men and for women. And it's a rule in the church that is used very often by different religious orders, because to be able to implement it in one's lifestyle doesn't take a lot of hard work. It takes the work of predisposing or disposing oneself to live in community, to share all things in common, and to search for God and discover God together. This is not just a one guy, one gal thing. And St. Augustine, when you read his autobiography, The Confessions, when you read a lot of his letters, as well as many of his writings, you see some common themes here, right? Unitas, veritas, caritas, right? Unity, truth, and love. And for Augustine, because of his own experience of conversion, wound up discovering God has been here the whole time. And even though we're kind of looking out here for God, he's going to make himself present here. But he's going to give us that. He's going to give us that leeway, that freedom to discover him. And as Augustine puts it so often, is that he's, discovering God within himself and realizing he's been here the whole time. Where have I been? So for us as Augustinians, there's this common search toward truth. Truth being Jesus Christ. And, Christ is going to manifest himself in so many different ways. As I say, sometimes God will pop his head out unexpectedly in unexpected circumstances, situations, places, and people. But he has given us the opportunity to be able to look for him this way. And so this is the Augustinian road, we can maybe say. Maybe all Christians are called to this. But there are so many different, wonderful, beautiful roads toward Christ, with our spiritualities across the boards. But this is specifically Augustinian.
Interesting that you say that. I think that living in community is a common thing amongst religious congregations. It is not, it looks different, I think, with certain orders or, whatever spiritual backgrounds, charisms of religious congregations. I know that is a very, very strong element of the Augustinian life, to live in community, because it isn't just my journey, it is a shared journey that we need one another in that search too.
Right. So community life for us is the foundation that propels us out to serve the church. So we can be out in the field all day, whatever we're doing, but we come back home to a group of brothers. At least ideally, right? Where we come together, we pray, we have meals together, we recreate together, but we spend time talking as well. And we have to remind ourselves, this is part and parcel of who we are as Augustinians, as religious, is to cultivate this fraternal relationship that we have collectively, but individually with one another, to give us that sense of support. Right? There's another piece to this as well, Megan, that is kind of implied, but I feel like I need to say it, and that is there is a recognition by St. Augustine. And he doesn't always use the word, but he has used it, and we use it all the time, and that is our restless nature.
Mm-hmm.
God created us to be restless,
Yes.
so we wouldn't become complacent.
Mm-hmm.
That we would be willing to step outside of these comfort zones. That once we get that taste of deepening our spirituality, our relationship with God, you're going to want more. At least that's how Augustine would see it. So therefore, we're always going to be restless by our very nature.
Sure.
And as he says in this first book, in this first chapter, in this first paragraph of his autobiography, you have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. So just get used to the fact that you're going to be restless.
Right. This is the human condition.
That's exactly what it is, the human condition.
Yeah, and it isn't a bad thing. It's a thing that keeps propelling us.
Right.
It pushes us forward. It keeps us searching, and it keeps us doing the work, continuing the mission, continuing that work.
Right, and I think that's where we
world.
learn how to cooperate with grace.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we cannot do it on our own. We do need God
Right.
in doing all of that kind of work. So you mentioned, of course, the province is quite large and quite diverse, much more than the Chicagoland area, although the provincial office is here in the Archdiocese of Chicago, right, in the city. Yeah.
Right.
But as provincial, you're traveling around all the time, I'm guessing, kind
Correct,
of visiting
yeah, right.
the
So the provincial, in each term, I'm finishing up my second term of 4 years each, and which is my last time, basically. So the provincial has the obligation constitutionally to pay a visit to all of the Augustinian houses within his circumscription, within his province or
Right.
vicariate.
Yeah.
And I'm all over the place.
in a very literal sense, but also, you're constantly moving around.
Right.
So can you tell us about some of the ministries that your fellow Augustinians have in the province?
Sure. Currently, we've already talked about the missions itself, and I'll get back into that. But in the meantime, we have friars who are in parochial ministry. We have friars who are in educational ministry as well. And there's a few of our guys that, due to the fact that they have certain inclinations toward certain ministries of outreach, they're able to do that as well. But we always emphasize the importance of a connection with a community. So if a guy is working outside of one of our provincial apostolates, he's still connected with an Augustinian community.
So if it's not an institution that's Augustinian founded,
That's
in
correct.
other words,
Right.
that he can work with others, he can collaborate with other
Absolutely, of course.
communities
Yeah,
and groups.
nothing would stop us, because it's interesting. Our mission statement for our Midwest province, the very last line is, "And we are called to wherever God calls us to serve." That kind of opens up a door.
Yeah.
And I like that, because it gives us that flexibility, because you can't stifle the Spirit. And the Spirit's going to get what it wants.
Right.
And God always wins.
God always wins. That is a very good way of putting it. But yeah, it allows you to respond to the times that,
Right.
Something comes up. There's a need. There's a gap. There's a connection that can be made, and it isn't all on the Augustinians' shoulders. It can be a shared thing.
That's
in
right.
a situation like
and
that.
you said something very significant, Megan, responding to the signs of the times. That is so conciliar, isn't it?
Right? Yes, that was.
It's even in one of the Eucharistic prayers to respond to the signs of the times. The Church has to do this. We have to move along with where we're all somehow going, but within limitations, as long as we're within the limits of the gospel message. And if it means at times we have to challenge ourselves individually, collectively, but also challenging the people of God. Where are we going with everything that's taking place right now?
Yeah.
How are we reading the signs of the times? And this is where Pope Leo XIV, his vision is to always move with the signs of the times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I know that he brings the Augustinian spirituality to his leadership and his speaking and in other ways. We'll talk a little bit more about him in our next segment. But can you tell us how many friars you have in the Midwest province?
Midwest province, currently, we're at about 55 in the United States. Mm-hmm. We're about 25, 26 in our vicariate in Peru. So they're directly connected with us.
Sure, okay.
Because even when it comes to voting for the next provincial, they're part of that, and their votes count. Mm-hmm. We're not that separate from one another. We work together, even though their ministry is very specific in South America.
Those are also Augustinians that are indigenous, people who are Peruvian who have become Augustinians.
That's right. In the past few years, actually, since the first group of Augustinians from the West were called to that part of Peru, all of our men down there are Peruvian, native Peruvians.
Yeah.
Right? And our leadership, this is the first time. So we're accomplishing, it's a slow movement, but we're accomplishing what we were set out to do.
Yeah.
Is to accompany the folks there, help them realize that they are members of the people of God. And you know what? You guys have responsibility.
Yeah, right.
Live it.
Right.
And bring it to the folks.
This is, it's a bit of an echo of the biblical example of St. Paul, who would sort of start the local church in a certain area, and then he'd move on, and he'd write them letters, but he really was expecting that community then to carry on the church's work, and this is what missionaries do.
Absolutely. That's the epitome of a missionary.
Yeah.
This is what we're called to do. Right. And not to hold on to it necessarily, but I always say, this is what we do. We do good, and we move on.
Right.
And to the next good thing that we do, to the next good thing that we do.
Right.
Yeah.
It can be humbling. It can be difficult to do that.
It can be, because sometimes we feel like we want to hold on.
Yeah, right.
But I also believe that that's part of our vow of poverty, is to let go.
Yes. Yeah. Believe that too. Yes. It's all for the greater glory of God, right? That we have to pass these things on. So God will continue to work wherever we move on from.
He's going to get his way.
Yeah, right. Whether you like it or not, God will have God's way. So we're ready to pause at this point, but I invite our listeners to stay tuned for part 2 of our conversation with Father Anthony Pizzo, reflecting on the Augustinian vocation of one mind and one heart on the way to God. Stay tuned.